Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So if you've ever wanted to test a product, giving it absolutely the best chance to be successful, and you're wondering if there's a better way of doing it than the quick testing strategies that most people talk about, then the answer is yes. And this is why today we're talking about a Facebook ads high budget strategy. So what is this for? Why do you need a Facebook ads high budget strategy? This is for the cases of when you have found a product that you think has a really high chance of doing well, and you've decided to invest in that product before you even test it. When I say investing in the product, I mean you've private labeled the product, you've ordered the product in bulk, you have invested in making a custom made website just for that product. Maybe you have also created a bunch of custom content with influencers just for this particular product, and you want to give it the best possible chance at being successful. Most testing strategies that are tailored for dropshippers assume that you have multiple products that you want to test in a short period of time and not a big budget to spend. So they focus on trying to get you the best bang for your buck. But of course, this means making concessions. If you want to mass test, you're not going to be very thorough with each test. So that's why most Facebook ad strategies for testing dropshipping products tend to be low budget strategies. So if you want to learn about a high budget strategy that allows you to give the best possible chances for product to succeed, this is the video for you. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay guys, so we're in the computer. First question, when should you use this strategy? If you have a list of multiple products that you want to quickly test and increase your chances of hitting a winning product, this is not for you. If you have a product that you've already invested in, you've made a custom website, you have a bunch of custom content, and you really want to give it the best chance to succeed, this is the strategy for you. Again, before we start, columns. I've mentioned this in every single Facebook ads specific video that I made. It's very important that you look at your data correctly. If you don't have your columns set up yet, make sure to pause the video right now, look at this screen and copy this over to your Facebook ads manager. It's very easy. You just have to go to columns, customize columns, and then copy this to your column setup. So the first thing I want to do is an overview of this high budget strategy so you can immediately understand how it is different from the low budget strategy that we've covered here before. This strategy is going to have multiple stages. So the first stage is going to be creative testing, the second stage is going to be social proofing, then audience testing, and then expansion tests. So I'm going to quickly go over each one of these stages to give you an idea of what this is all about. The creative testing strategy here is going to be a lot more in depth than the creative strategy that we used for the low budget strategy. If you want to make sure that you're using the best possible creative for your marketing angle, you need to test multiple different things and you need to test them one at a time. I've had a few people asking me, shouldn't I test just the creative? Shouldn't I test just the copy? Shouldn't I isolate these variables? And the answer is, of course, yes, you should, ideally speaking, if you have the budget to use a high budget Facebook ad strategy. A lot of people don't. That's why we have low budget Facebook ad strategies. But if you want to have your ideal scenario, of course, you always want to isolate every single variable that you test. And that is what we're going to be doing with this strategy. So we're going to have separate tests for creatives, copies, and headlines. Then we're going to move to a next phase here that I don't think I've mentioned ever before on this channel, which is social proofing. And then audience testing. Audience testing is the standard testing phase that is in every single strategy, which is of course testing your interests. So what's going to be different here? Is it going to be exactly the same as the low budget strategy? No, we're not going to be as aggressive with our criteria for cutting ad sets because we want to give them the best possible chance to optimize and bring in some results. The interest testing structure is similar, but the criteria that we use to cut and scale is going to be a little bit different. The final section is going to be the expansion tests. By expansion tests, we mean testing other variables that will give us more audiences to scale other than just changing interests. And these could be different countries, different marketing angles, and different placements. Okay, so let's get started with the creative testing. Before you get started, we need 5 different creatives, 5 different headlines, 5 different ad copies. Before you start doing your creatives or your headlines and your copies, something very important to keep in mind is we are using one single marketing angle. Because again, if we want to be thorough with our strategy, we have to isolate every single variable to really make sure that we get the most accurate results from our testing. What this means is that you don't want to be testing 2 different ad copies for two different marketing angles because they may be hitting different audiences, and in this way you're not isolating every variable and you're not doing the best possible job that you can do to optimize your creative. So what I recommend that you do is before you start doing creatives, headlines, or ad copies, do some audience research first. Go on Amazon reviews, go on your competitors' websites, go to any social media where your audience might be discussing things related to your product and find out what is the best marketing angle for your product. Once you have that, you want to make 5 different creatives, 5 different headlines, and 5 different ad copies for the same marketing angle. So I'll give you an example of what we don't want to do. I'll use a product that was submitted by one of our viewers in the store reviews video. If you haven't checked the store reviews video, definitely check it out. I'll leave a link here in the corner. This particular store was angling a product that was multicolored light that was usually angled by most people towards influencers and content creators and anyone that wanted to shoot selfies and pictures. He was doing it differently. He was angling it towards people with a certain condition which would cause them distress, and the light from this product would help with easing that distress. Taking this example, what you don't want to do is do 5 creatives, but 3 of them are angled towards content creators and 2 of them are angled towards the people that suffer from that particular condition. Because if you do this, you're not really isolating the variable of the creative. You're mixing in a second marketing angle. You're advertising to 2 different audiences, and this is not going to help with the accuracy of your test. So again, 1 marketing angle, make your 5 creatives, make your 5 headlines, make your 5 ad copies, and let's get moving to the next section. One small note that I want to make here. When I say creative, I'm using the word in 2 different senses sometimes, so I want to differentiate what I mean with creative. One thing is the whole creative, so everything, including the picture of the video, the headline, and the ad copy, and the other thing is the creative, strictly speaking, which is the picture and the image alone. So when I say here 5 different creatives, of course I mean 5 different pictures or videos and 5 different headlines, 5 different copies. Next up is the creative testing structure. So the first step is going to be testing your creative, strictly speaking, which is the picture or video. And here you have 2 options. You can either do 5 pictures, 5 videos, 5 carousel ads, which means that you would go through this structure right here on the screen 3 times, or you could mix them together. Again, this is a concession depending on your budget. If you want to do the best possible job of isolating every single variable, you would do 5 pictures at a time, pick the best one. 5 videos at a time, pick the best one. 5 carousels at a time, pick the best one. And you would have your final 3 winning creatives. If you want to spend a little bit less, because this phase alone costs you $150 on average, and it can get a bit expensive, what you can do is you mix pictures, videos, creatives in your 5, and then you test them and you choose your best picture, best video, best carousel from this test without isolating the variables. So it's up to you, and of course, depending on the budget that you have to allocate to this test. So the structure would be 5 ad sets, 1 creative in each ad set, and we run these ad sets with the exact same settings. So you will choose the countries that you want to sell in. I recommend the big 5, so US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. You will choose 3 to 5 broad interests that relate to your product. You will stack those interests and you will use those interests in every single ad set. So the exact same thing in every single ad set. After you've run the campaign until 2,000 impressions, which is a good number for us to be able to take conclusions. If you want to be super thorough, you can take it to 5,000 or 8,000 impressions, which is the number that Facebook recommends in terms of you letting you run a particular ad set or creative before you make decisions. I think 2,000 impressions is a good point. When you get to that number of impressions, you select the creative with the best CPC. Remember, the CPC is the most important pre-click metric. If you don't know what I'm talking about or why I'm saying the CPC is the most important pre-click metric, make sure that you understand this before you jump into a Facebook ad strategy such as this one. To do that, make sure that you check my video on how to analyze your Facebook ads metrics. Again, I'll leave a link in the corner. So the goal here is that we understand which one of the creatives is resonating the best with our target audience, broadly speaking. The one that gives us the best distribution, that's the one that we're going to consider to be our winning creative. That's the one that we're taking to our next phase. When you have your winning creative, you're going to test your ad copies. So for the first phase, the ad copy that you use doesn't matter too much. You select one of them, you use them for each interest, you test your creatives, you have your winning creative, that's it. Now we go on to testing the actual ad copies. So we have our winning creative, we're going to take our winning creative and we're going to make 5 ad sets with the winning creative. And now we're going to test 5 different ad copies. For the headline, again, use one of your 5 headlines. We're going to test the headline after this. For this test, because we're testing the ad copy, we want to isolate the variable of the ad copy and we want to keep everything else the same. Again, your ad set with the same exact settings and interests stacked with 3 or 5 of your broad interests related to your product and 1 copy per ad set. So your winning creative from step 1, your 5 different ad copies, 1 per ad set, and a headline that you choose doesn't matter too much. We're going to test the headline next. Again, run to 2000 impressions, select the one with the best CPC. If you have very similar CPCs, use the CTR to break the tie. So at this point, you already have your winning creative and you have your winning ad copy. Time to test the headlines. Same structure, 5 ad sets or interests, same countries, same everything. And now we isolate the variable of the headline. So headline 1, headline 2, 3, 4, and 5, 1 in each ad set, separate creatives, 1 with each headline to see which one does the best. Okay, so at this point, we have our winning creative. We have our best headline, we have our best creative, we have our best ad copy. I recommend though that you have 3 winning creatives, 1 picture, 1 video, 1 carousel ideally. So you can either pick the top 3 creatives from your creative testing phase, or you can run your creative testing phase 3 times, 1 for pictures, 1 for videos, and 1 for carousels. Of course, this has budget implications. If you do it only 1 time, you're going to be spending about $450. If you do it 3 times, you're looking at $1,350. So a lot more expensive. But again, bear in mind, this is a strategy designed for anyone who's already put a sizable investment upfront into their product and really wants to maximize the chances of that product doing well. Whichever way you choose to go though, I recommend that you always have 3 winning creatives to move on to the audience testing. And the reason for this is that this will increase your distribution. Facebook knows that some people are more likely to interact with pictures, some people are more likely to interact with videos, and some people are more likely to interact with carousel ads. So if you want to make sure that your ad reaches the maximum amount of people possible, you want to give Facebook 1 creative for each format so that Facebook can give the carousel to people who engage with carousels, the picture to people who react better to pictures, and the video to people who react better to videos. Now, once we have our 3 winning creatives, we're ready to move on to the social proofing phase. Social proofing is something that I have not mentioned on the channel before, and I really want to emphasize how important and how helpful this can be. Facebook cares about the user experience on their platform, right? So Facebook wants to give people ads that people enjoy seeing. This is where engagement comes in. The same way that your ad wouldn't do very well if people were reporting it all the time, your ad will benefit from people commenting, from people liking, and from people sharing it. The effect that this has on your ad is generally lower CPMs, because Facebook will think that because people are enjoying your ad, they're engaging with your ad is giving them a positive experience. So Facebook wants to show people ads that give them positive experiences, and this will give you an edge on your competitor. If your ad has more engagement than your competitor, Facebook will privilege the distribution of your ad instead of your competitor, thus resulting in giving you a lower CPM. That is why, if we want to maximize the chances of our ad doing really well, we should social proof it before we actually start testing the conversion campaigns, and even keep the social proofing going after we start our conversions campaigns. This is the structure that I recommend for social proofing. I recommend that you start doing social proofing 3 days before you start your conversion campaigns, and you do it with 3 ad sets, $5 a day per ad set, and each ad set will have 1 of your winning creatives. You can use the same interest stack that you used for the creative test. That's not too important. What we want to have these campaigns running with post engagement to boost the engagement of your winning creatives that you're then going to take into your conversions campaign. Now for the audience testing. The audience testing structure is similar to the one that I've mentioned before, but there's a difference here, which is we're not going to use CBO, we're going to use ABO. When I mentioned CBO for the last strategy, I got a lot of people asking, isn't it better to use ABO? And in line with what I've already said before, yes, it is better, but it might cause you to spend more money before you hit your winning audiences. If you're using CBO, Facebook is going to start trying from day 1, even with your testing campaign, to try and make it profitable, thus reallocating the budget. With ABO, you're giving every ad set the same budget. So you're giving your bad audiences as much money as you're giving to your good audiences. Of course, the advantage of this is that you're giving every single audience an equal chance when they're being tested, so you're being a lot more rigorous with your testing. So what we need to get on with the audience testing is our 10 winning creatives, $10 a day per ad set, and we want to do our audience research to find 10 interests related to our customer avatar. Our customer avatar meaning, of course, the general picture of who our ideal customers are and what things they're interested in. The structure for the campaign 1 ABO campaign, 10 ad sets, your 3 winning creatives in each ad set. So we're giving Facebook a picture, a video, and a carousel for each single ad set. We're using conversions campaign with the purchase objective. Of course, we're using your target countries. I recommend starting with the big 5, and we're using a single interest because that is the variable that we're isolating here. We're isolating the interest to find out what our winning audiences may be. So how long do we run the ad sets until we make changes? That depends, because it depends on your profit margin. Of course, if you're selling an expensive product, you cannot expect to make sales as quickly as if you're selling a cheap product. So you run your ad sets until they spend your profit margin, so your break-even point. The exception to this is if you hit terrible audiences with a very, very high CPC. So in general, if I see a CPC that is above $2 after 24 hours, I will just turn that off. Also, for anything that I turn off, I always want to replace with another interest to be able to cycle more audiences and hit more potential winning audiences. We've run this for a few days, we've spent our profit margin, now it's time to make decisions. We want to find the audiences that are profitable. So we want to find audiences that are above our break-even ROAS after we've run them until they spend the entire profit margin. And again, the scaling method is going to be similar to what I've mentioned before. Every time that you find 4 to 5 profitable audiences that can stay above break-even ROAS consistently, you then go ahead, you duplicate them into a CBO, and this is where you can increase the budget and start scaling aggressively. So I would do a CBO of anywhere between $100 and $500, depending on how profitable those winning interests are. So if you have like a 5x ROAS, you can go for $300. If you have a 2x ROAS, probably go for just $100. The final thing that I want to talk about in this strategy is expansion testing. Now, what do I mean about expansion testing? Expansion testing means finding more things that you can scale without relying on just interest testing to find more scaling options. If you already have 1 or 2 scaling campaigns that are running successfully, you should expand your testing. So you won't be testing just interests. I highly recommend that you test new creatives as well. Because if you think about it, if you have a new set of 3 creatives and you duplicate your best performing interest in your testing campaign, but instead of using your old creatives, you use the new ones, and you find out that these new creatives are giving you better CPC and a better ROAS than your original creatives, you can then, if this ad set becomes profitable, scale it as well. So you're using the same interest, but because of the new creatives, you have found a new scaling opportunity with the new creatives. And this is the example for creatives. You can do this for a lot of other things, like you can do it for countries. Duplicate your best performing interest, same creatives, but now you add more countries. So if these countries also perform well, that's another thing that you can scale. And it goes on. You can even use different placements and marketing angles. So if you already have a few interests that you're scaling on a particular marketing angle, you can go back to the beginning of the strategy with the creative testing, but this time for a different marketing angle. And if you find another marketing angle that works, you can then scale it as well. Or if you want to skip the creative testing, sometimes you can always take the same creatives, try a new ad copy, a new headline, adjust it to a different audience, target interests within that audience, within that different marketing angle. And if you see positive results, then you go into the creative testing again with creatives that are tailored to your new marketing angle. And that's it for our high budget Facebook ad strategy. I hope that you enjoyed it. I wanted to have a high budget as well as a low budget Facebook ad strategy on the channel because I've had many clients that came to me with products that they already invested a whole lot of money, but they were still testing them with low budget strategies. So it doesn't really make sense if you've put a lot of work and effort and time and money into a particular product to still use a low budget strategy to test it. In those cases, you should be using a strategy that gives your product the absolute best chance of succeeding. As always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Let me know if you have any suggestions for future videos. We have some new video formats coming up. I think they're going to be really interesting. I'm really excited for what's coming. We're going to have our first episode of roundtable sessions before the end of the year. We're going to have special guests on the channel to answer some of your guys' questions and to talk about some current themes in the e-commerce space. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of every new upload. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.